What's up, Falcon fans? On today's episode, we're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. If you guys like this type of content, hit that like button. If you guys hate this type of content, hit that dislike button. It won't hurt your boy's feelings, well, maybe just a little bit. But also, if you want to do a huge favor for your boy, by hitting that subscribe button, it will help out the empire grow. So on that note, let's dive into the 7 categories that I have for today's video. Let's get started with category number 1. Home field advantage versus home field advantage. I'm going to give my points to the Atlanta Falcons. So now let's talk about category number 2. Coaches versus coaches. Dennis Allen versus Arthur Smith. Let's start out with Dennis Allen's first. He is a defensive coach by heart since 1966, where he plays a 4-3 defensive scheme-wise. And when it comes to the offense side of the ball, he likes to play a lot of fast tempo concepts on the offense side of the ball. Now, obviously, a lot of people remember him back in 2012 through 2014 as the Oakland Raiders head coach. He didn't do so hot. He won 8 games out of 36 games, and he lost 28, and then he got canned in his 3rd season when he went 0-4, and that's where he kind of went back to New Orleans to regroup his defensive prowess. And then in 2022, he became the head coach for the Saints. He took them to a 7-10 season, 3rd in division, and then now a 5-5 record, and they've been averaging 20 points per game so far this season. So now let's talk about Arthur Smith. You guys know how I feel about Arthur Smith at this moment in time. I think he's very talented when it comes to the rushing attack off the side of the ball. And then hiring Ryan Nielsen as our defensive coordinator, I thought that was a really great job. But he's so stubborn and not willing to change in some philosophies he has put in place. And that's really hurting the Atlanta Falcons organization, in a whole. So I'm going to give my points to Dennis Allen. Now let's talk about category number 3. Falcons quarterback wide receiver versus the Saints secondary. Let's start out with the Falcons. I think that Desmond Ridder is a okay quarterback for where he's coming from for right now. He is capable of winning a game against the Green Bay Packers, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against the Houston Texans, and then there are some games where you kind of have to question, okay, he clearly needs more time in the NFL against the Jaguars, against the Washington Commanders. But besides all that, I thought, if he get enough time in the pocket, he can really do some damage, and the play calling as well. Then when it comes to the wide receiver core, I'm very disappointed on a technical side when it comes to the wide receiving core. Besides Drake London, he has 27 first down conversions, so that's great on his department. But outside of that, Mac Hollins most definitely have been a huge disappointment, because I know he's capable of balling out. He did it with the Raiders, but unfortunately he only has 29 targets, only caught 17 receptions, and only targeted 9 times for a first down conversion. And that just tells you the lack of trust and communications between the quarterbacks and the coordinators and him, and then the play calling as well, because we could dissect that as well. And then Scotty Miller, and then Kadarius Hodge, and then Von Jefferson as well. I mean, it just seemed like the lack of schemes to fit everybody in a sharing type of mentality, because I know we are run first team concept type of mentality, but even still, with all this talent, I don't think we're using them to their full advantage, and that's really hurting the Atlanta Falcons. So now let's talk about the Saints secondary. Their secondary is ranked 3rd when it comes to all 32 NFL teams. They are tied for 2nd when it comes to interceptions with 12. They have 68 pass deflections. Their corners and safeties stick with their man, sticky coverage. Hardly ever allows them to get over 100 receiving yards by the opponents. Adebo has 13 pass deflections and 4 interceptions. That's their best. And then they got the slot corner in Isaiah. I can't say his last name, but he has 1 interception and 7 pass deflections. And then, Marshawn Lattimore, 8 pass deflections and 1 interception. And then, of course, the kid from Tennessee, Taylor, he has 10 pass deflections, no interceptions. But you get what I'm saying, that they hardly ever allow the opponent to get over the top and give them big chunks of yardage. If only rare occasions that does happen, but more consistently enough, they shut down wide receivers, and it shows. So my points goes to the Saints secondary. Now let's talk about category number 4. Falcons running back, tight end, and O-line versus the Saints front 7. Let's start out with the Falcons. When it comes to the offensive line play, they definitely work differently between Desmond Ridder, who's a second year, and Taylor Heineke, who's a sixth year. Obviously, there's some negatives and there's some positives that go into being a young and old quarterback and understanding the league a little bit better than not. And besides that, that's a whole nother video we could talk about that I could really break down more in greater detail. But for right now, it's just interesting to see why so much difference and why not so much cohesive with the offensive line when it comes to the scoring points type of mentality for the offensive line. But when it comes to the rushing attack, we average over 100 plus rushing yards per game. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both have over 400 rushing yards. They also have over 25 rushing first down conversions, and they both have over 2+ rushing touchdowns. When it comes to Desmond Ridder, he has 4 rushing touchdowns that leads the Atlanta Falcons rushing attack. But when it comes to Cordell Patterson, I don't understand why he's falling off from the Atlanta Falcons map. Yes, I understand he was injured early on in the preseason, was out for 4 weeks and came back against the Houston Texans, didn't really do anything. His best game was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he got 10 carries for 56 yards, averaged 5.6 per carry. But then after that, against the Tennessee Titans, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Arizona Cardinals, he was a no-show. He got a couple touches here and there, and for some reason, we're not using him properly. Yes, I understand, the 2 other running backs, but even still, you're still trying to figure out the way to find him to get into position to make great plays and first down conversions. You call him the Joker for a reason, but we're not using him as the Joker position for some reason, and it's kind of mind-boggling when it comes to that aspect. Or Arthur Smith is not telling us he's 100% healthy and he can't do what he did previously in the 2 years with the Atlanta Falcons. That could be a reason why we haven't seen him a lot. But what I can tell you is that the 2 tight ends are definitely a bonus in this situation with the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, because it is Arthur Smith where he likes to use the 2 tight end sets, and Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts where they both have over 400 receiving yards. They both have over 18 plus first down receiving conversions. They both have over 3 big plays that are 20-yard down the fields. And both of them are loved by the quarterbacks and Heineke and Ridder, where they feel comfortable enough to move the chains for first down conversions on third down specifically. So when it comes to the New Orleans Saints side, that's very interesting as well. I think that the front 7 is pretty okay. They're not excellent, but they're not bad either. They almost had a chance to beat the Packers by 1. They almost had a chance to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars by 7. They almost had a chance to come back and beating the Minnesota Vikings, where the Vikings were 21-up, and then to the third quarter, they kind of came back alive. Eventually, they did lose, but it was 27-19, so they did climb their way. And then, when it comes to their sacks, they average 2 sacks per game. They have 18 in total. But the one thing I've kind of noticed, and this happens to a lot of teams, so it's not really something new. They kind of got exposed when it comes to the play action and then the run game. They don't do very well containing the running backs and the quarterbacks either. I can't really say that about us, but it is something to note about. So I'm going to give my points to the Atlanta Falcons. So now let's talk about category number 5. Saints quarterback and wide receiver versus the Falcons secondary. Let's talk about the Saints first. All I'm going to say is I know a lot of people don't like Derek Carr. I actually like him as a quarterback when he was with the Oakland Raiders in 2014. Really changed that program around in 2016 and beyond. Now, they did go to 2 playoffs. Yes, they did lose. But remember, they were the Oakland Raiders that haven't been good since, if I'm not recalled, in 2002, where they won 11-5 games and lost, into the Super Bowl. But besides that, he did change the Oakland Raiders culture and making them a pretty good in that own conference when they had to go against the Chargers and the Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs, where they have to face them twice every year. So obviously they're not always going to be the number 1 top in their division, but they did a pretty good job trying to fight for the second a couple of times, third, and sometimes fourth. But the idea is he always took them a fighting chance to try to make it. That's all I'm saying. But he is in the concussion protocol, so I don't know if he's going to play this week. But if he doesn't, we still have to worry because they have 2 other quarterbacks, and Jameson Winston, who can always be, a threat with his arm. And he has beaten us a couple times, as a Buccaneer and a Saint. But Also, no, Taysom Hill is definitely one of those quarterbacks where you think you have full advantage on, but in reality, he just kicks our asses all the time for some reason. We can't stop him in the pass. We definitely can't stop him in the run. And they come up with creative ways where he just, I don't know. We just can't stop him, and it's just really annoying. So on that same level, when it comes to the wide receiving core, Chris Olave is balling like always, as a first rounder. Shaheed is also a danger. We cannot underestimate him now. Michael Thomas is on IR. But even still without him, what does it matter? A.T. Perriman is coming into his own fruition against the Minnesota Vikings, so he's definitely going to get more targets now. And then, Keith Kirkwood, he kind of damaged us a couple of times, so we can't underestimate any of them. So, on that note, I kind of noticed that the Atlanta Falcons can hold up against the wide receiving core like first, second, and third quarter, but when the fourth quarter kind of happens, they kind of falter. And sometimes what really gets me annoyed is that a lot of times the opposite side kind of have a credible scheme plays where they find a way to get wide open coverages, and then the play action pass absolutely hurts the Atlanta Falcons secondary a couple times. But we are pretty good as well. We like to stick to our man as much as possible until there's certain play calls that the Atlanta Falcons defense like to do where we don't do man-to-man coverage, more cover 2, cover 3 type of situation, and it just kind of hurts us at the wrong time in the wrong place as well. And the Atlanta Falcons corners sometimes, D. Alford is definitely a top nickel in my eyes. He's been doing everything you need him to ask. AJ Terrell has been shutting down wide receivers, not giving them over 100 yards reception. So that's great news as well. Jeff Okudah is doing pretty good as well. So we have no bums on the corners, but there are certain play calls that really hurt the corners and the safeties as well. Jesse Bates, he's been balling out, for the first 4 games, but then slowly but surely, I don't know what's happening. He's just not making a lot of plays like I like him to. And I also forgot to mention our zone coverage schemes sometimes really hurt the Atlanta Falcons and what they're trying to do because of the lack of pass rush. But besides that, I'm going to give my points to the Atlanta Falcons secondary. Only because if Derek Carr is starting, I think we can have a better time in maintaining him and making sure he doesn't run for crazy yardage, and we can focus him on only doing one thing instead of doing 5 different things at one time. But if Jameson Winston or Taysom Hill plays full time, we're definitely going to lose this one. But now let's talk about category number 6. Saints running back, tight end, O-line versus the Falcons front 7. Let's start out with the Saints. It's honestly surprising that their offensive line is not gelling like they used to be doing back in the past. Yes, Derek Carr only got 21 sacks. In total, they only allowed 24 sacks at the quarterback, but even still, what's really surprising is the run attack. They only have 1,000 rushing yards so far. I think it's in the low tier in the NFL. Alvin Kamara only has 388 rushing yards. Now, he usually average in total 800 to 900 rushing yards, but he usually gets over like 10 plus rushing touchdowns, but he only has 2. And so there's something very interesting about, why is it not everything matching well? Can't find the right holes. They're abandoning the running game because they're mostly passing it now. Derek Carr has 334 attempts, 220 completions. So that kind of shows you and tells you that they prefer the passing it. Taysom Hill is also a running back at this point too. He has 1 big play, but guarantee against us, he's going to have more. He has 3 rushing touchdowns, and he has 261 rushing yards. And so for that, we just can't underestimate them. And then, of course, the tight ends, Foster Moore, I think that's how you say my boy's name. He's okay. He's not excellent or bad. He's just okay. But, Jawan Johnson, who is a beast. And for some reason, he has not had over 100 receiving yards. But then again, the Atlanta Falcons are allowing the tight ends to absolutely go banana ham on us for some reason. And I just know Johnson's probably going to get a touchdown in this game against us. I just know because he does so well against us, unfortunately. And that's the case here. So now let's talk about the Falcons front 7. So when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons front seven, they do a pretty good job in maintaining the running back, not allowing them to eclipse 70 rushing yards individually. We do get the pressures, we do get the sacks. Little by little, we have 21 sacks so far. I like that we do have a lot of 41 tackle for losses. So I like that we're hungry, we get after it as much as possible. But the one issue when it comes to the linebacker play is covering the tight ends, because the Panthers, the Lions, the Texans, the Vikings, and then the Cardinals, we allow the Titans to either score or get over 60 plus yardage. That really hurts the Atlanta Falcons defense, because we, for some reason, allow them to get wide open coverage. Sometimes we don't even try to contest that for some crazy reason. I don't know why. I'm not the defensive coordinator. I'm not into, diving and talking. Why are we allowing this to happen? Because sometimes when we do cover them, we do a pretty good job, 50-50. But when we don't look at them, we just allow them to beast and feast on us. Now, with the Cardinals, yes, we did try to stop them eventually, but the Cardinals tight end was getting wide open coverage way too easy, way too often for my liking. And that's something that the Atlanta Falcons have been doing all season, where we cannot stop the tight ends for any means necessary. And I don't know why. Even though we have not allowed a running back to score a single rushing touchdown, but we did allow I think 3 quarterbacks or 4 quarterbacks so far to at least get one rushing touchdown. And that's something that we just have to change completely. But I'm going to give my points to the Atlanta Falcons front seven, just because I think we just, and overall, are just a much better unit than they are. So now let's talk about category number 7. Special teams versus special teams. Let's start out with the New Orleans Saints. So when it comes to their kicking core, Blake Grupe, I think that's how I say my boy's name. He's an undrafted rookie out of Notre Dame. And, so far, 24 attempts, 19, made it, playing 10 games, his longest was the 55. And so far, he's been pretty good, 4 out of 6 when it comes to the 50-yard line. Not bad either, pretty good for a 25-year-old, And then, of course, the returning game, Shaheed, definitely a danger, Copperfield type of mentality, for the kickoffs. He has 343 total rushing yards, 28 long. He averaged 21.4 per carry. And then for the punting, he has 1 touchdown, 76 long, 17 attempts, 253 yards, average 14.9. So he's definitely a scary type of person mentality. Now, when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons, we all know that Younghoe Koo is the king of the South. He did 22 attempts, made 21. His longest was 54. He's for the 50-yard line, he's 3 for 3. Bada bing, bada boom, excellent. But when it comes to our own, kicking game, punt game, it's pretty terrible. CP only has 89 return yards. I don't know why. He only averaged 22.3. His longest was a 29. And then the punts, barely anybody. It feels like for some reason Arthur Smith just can't seem to get together who's going to be on the kickoffs and the punting. I just don't know. So I'm actually going to give my points to the New Orleans Saints, unfortunately, because they're just all around when it comes to special teams. And also the Atlanta Falcons, for recently, they've been giving up pretty big yardage to the punts and kickoff returns, and it's not like they keep constantly doing it, and so that's why I'm going to give my points to the New Orleans Saints. So now let's talk about our final conclusions. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of Falcon fans are going to be pissed at me and probably call me a sellout and probably going to say I'm not a true Atlanta Falcons fan. Okay, it is what it is, but I feel like we're going to lose this one 23-17. These have always been really close games, not since, 2019 where, we beat them 26-9. But outside that, since 2020s, we are 1-5, 6 meetings, and we just cannot figure out a way to beat them, We're on a 3-game losing streak so far. Hopefully I am dead wrong, and hopefully I can eat crow and apologize to the football gods. But for right now, as it stands, we just don't we can't beat them. We just can't. I mean, it's always a 7-point less game type of mentality. It's always been very close at the very end, but then for some reason, we just find a way to lose these incredible games. You know, it's just so mind-boggling. Until we be consistent in beating, you know, the New Orleans Saints, you know, consistently, like back in 2016 through 2017. You know, I hate this. I hate to lose to them. Believe me, I hate that. I remember the golden era for the Atlanta Falcons, you know, through 1995 through 1990. You know, we were constantly kicking their asses, but not until Drew Brees, you know, kind of came along and really rectified this, you know, record. But you know what? I'll make peace with it. Hopefully, I swear to God, hopefully I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm going to be right in this prediction. Sorry, you guys, you're probably going to get pissed at me, but let me know in the comment section, do you guys agree with me or disagree with me? You know, I hate saying this because I really want us to win, but I've been saying this, you know, against the Tennessees, the Vikings, and the Cardinals, and saying and the Commanders saying we were gonna win those games in my prediction videos, and then for some reason we don't, and then I look like an idiot. This time I'm gonna not go with my gut, but go with my football knowledge head and say we're gonna lose this one. Okay, before I leave, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully your Thursday morning through night is a blessed one for all of you guys. So, on that note, if you guys lasted this long to the very end of the video, thank you so much for taking your own personal time and day to watch these Falcon content videos. I love making videos for you guys. If you guys are interested, here's more on the screen. So what do Falcons do? Rise up. Until the next episode, show love and peace of the world, and peace.